Okay, so this animated world is this whole new playground for us to work in, and I've got everything working the way I want. So now I have to think, how do I save it as an animated GIF that can play online easily, and how do I make a clean storyboard of it? And as I played it through, I realized I don't really want it to start here with the creature rolling in. And this is why I have my sketches up. What was my intention? My intention was to establish it with the rock already in the desert, and then to be surprised by how it comes out of its shell. And then it goes over to the other side, and then I actually had it rolling back into place, shuffling dust, and then resetting. I changed that a little bit because I didn't want to do all that rolling all the way across the whole scene. And I like that decision. But if I start the animation where I started it before, right here at frame 6, and instead move these first 5 frames all the way to the end, and I can do that, right? So at the very end of the animation, it rolls in, then it will still start where I want it to. So here's the difference. Now it starts and the rock is there. And then he pops out. And maybe I do want to, I took those frames out, but maybe I do want to show a little bit of jostling in position here. Let me see. Turn off auto select so I don't get in trouble with my layers. So maybe I want it to move around just a little bit. Before it settles back down. Maybe not that much, really subtle. And I'm going to make this one last a little bit longer, this step. Okay, now when I play it, maybe even last a full second. Why not? So it's more of a surprise when he comes up. All right. So then he's walking. Remember, I staggered the walk cycle a little bit so it didn't look so repetitive. And it starts panning away. And now at the end of the animation, to reset, the creature will roll in. So now it is telling my story, but it also is kind of following the spirit of my idea and works as a loop. Okay, so once that all works, the only problem is this file is over 2 gigabytes. That is not a file you can put online. And this is a Photoshop file at full resolution, basically. 6.5 inches by 350 pixels per inch, which is great for printing, but not good for putting online. So the first thing we have to do after we've finished our Photoshop animating is to shrink it to a size that's better for online viewing. Because remember, GIF animations can only be viewed on a screen. They don't get printed out animated. And that screen is a much lower resolution than printing. A standard screen resolution is 72 pixels per inch. Our high-def screens in the classroom are around 120 pixels per inch, but that's nowhere close to 350. So what I need to do is reduce its image size to 100 pixels per inch, which is a good standard, not even standard, which is the screen resolution I like to use nowadays, because some people have high-def screens, retina screens, and some people have older screens, 72. So I'll usually save for screen at 100, though 72 is the standard. And we're going to make it 8 inches by 8 inches, or 8 inches should be the largest dimension of whatever your animation is. So if you're doing a landscape format, 8 inches should be how wide it is by 100 pixels per inch. So that's what I'm doing next. I've saved the PSD. If I want to check if it's saved, I just go to File, Save, and if saved is blurred out, it means it already is saved at this stage. Now I go to Image, Image Size. I'm going to resample, so it reshuffles and reduces my pixels. I'm going to make it 8 inches by 8 inches by only 100 pixels per inch. So each frame now, or each layer, used to be 14.5 megapixels. Now it's only 1.8 megapixels. So okay. And I have a lot of layers, a lot of frames. But I actually have more frames than I have layers, because I did so much with kind of in-betweening, or not in-betweening, but so much where I turned the same things on, just in a slightly different way. So I've got 50-something frames, but I think only about 30-something layers. Yeah, actually, no, I have 97 frames. My goodness. Try to keep it under 100, and around 67 layers. So I have a lot going on, but I still have fewer layers than frames. So at this point, I want to save it as a GIF animation. So I say File, GIF, or GIF. File, I don't do Save or Save As, right? I definitely don't do Save because I don't want to overwrite my PSD file. This resolution is a lot less, but it's still plenty good for a computer, right? Because at size, it will look really clean. And so to save for online viewing, I say Save for Web. And that will embed the animation into the file and keep it small. So these are the settings I prefer. Remember that GIFs are limited in memory by only having a maximum of 256 colors. I like to use the maximum. I like adaptive GIF rendering. It looks the most kind of photo believable, but you'll see my colors aren't as potent in the GIF because it's limited in its color range. And I like the quality to be bicubic smoother. Then I can play it through. See that it works? Your timing needs to be at least 0.1 second for it to be able to be picked up here and play. So that's working. You can see the shifting of the dust isn't quite so noticeable. And the shadows look a little bit flatter. This graphic interchange format is highly reduced in quality, which is why we saved our animation as a PSD first. Okay, but it works well. So if it all works well, then you say save, and it will save with the same name but as a GIF file. Once you save your animation, you want to test it, make sure it works. And to do that, you just view it in an online browser. So here it is. This is the first time we've used this format. If you double click, it will open up in preview and show you all of your individual frames, but instead I want to view it in a browser like Chrome. Any moment now. Let's see how it works. So 8 by 8 inches by 100 is still plenty good resolution. You can see that right now matching my screen resolution. And it takes a little while to load, but then once it's there, it's great. It won't always start in the beginning when it takes a while to load. But then when it cycles through again, it will. So that's our GIF animation, showing a transformation using at least one thing that we've already created. Great. So that's done. Now, I need to make the storyboard. So this is my Photoshop format after I reduced it, but I haven't saved it, and I don't want to save it. Instead, I want to keep this image size, 8 inches by 8 inches by 100 pixels per inch. And I want to do something a little crazy. I want to go to my top layer, and then in my timeline, I want to say flatten frames into layers. So now this is going to add 97 flattened layers above that top layer. And the reason I need that is so they're basically screen grabs. So they'll call themselves frames 1 through 97. And I'm going to erase everything underneath that. Okay? What's interesting is my animation will still work just as normal, but I don't need an animation anymore. So I'm going to, I basically just don't need my animation anymore, but I can use it as a guideline. So we are doing a 9-frame storyboard. I have to figure out what do I want in the middle of my storyboard. And this doesn't mean that this happens at the midpoint of your animation. It's in the story what happens. So this is when he's shrinking back into his shell. So really where I want the end of or the middle of my animation, that middle frame, is maybe about here, when he starts to go behind the rock. And he starts to shrink. So that panel, number 52, that is my middle frame. Okay? So what I'm going to do is make sure that's the only layer that's on, the middle frame, and I'm going to grow around this with canvas size. And I'm going to make it 30 inches wide by 40 inches tall. If your storyboard isn't a square, you might have to change those dimensions a little bit. Remember, it's only 100 pixels per inch. Okay, then I'm going to shrink it, use my guides to stick to the sides of my square format. Whoops. And you get guides by using the move tool and clicking in the ruler and pulling down. And then I'm going to turn on my grid using Command apostrophe. And I'm going to give it 1 inch space in between. So 1 inch to the top, 1 inch off to the side, 1 inch from the bottom, using that grid, just so it's an even spacing. Okay, now I can turn off the grid, and I can see my guides, and I have a nice little nest for all of my storyboards. I'm going to start my animation with this panel. So I go to that frame, select that frame, move it up into place. So frame 1, and then what was the other one? 52. Thank you, 52. Okay. Now you notice if I keep my frames here, it's going to make it difficult to do this. So I need to delete all of my animation frames. So frame 1 is going to go into this corner. Frame 52 stays put just where it is. And now I need to tell the story with my different frames up to there. So let's do it. I'm going to mark frame 52 red, so I know that that's my middle. And now I'm going to kind of pick other frames that might help. So that's a nice one, showing that he's popped out. Or maybe I need one in progress, like that. So this will be my next frame. And then he's popped out and on the move. How about that one? Okay, and now he's walking. So the background has to start moving behind him. Took me a while to get moving. There we go, starts to move. Whoops. nice to have auto select on for this.